It comes down to often to clients who believe that negotiating down their partner agencies, creative media agencies, they're doing the right thing, but you can't negotiate down so far that there's no margin there because you then can't afford to employ the people to work on your business.
So for early career professionals in marketing now, how do you feel like they can, I guess, pave their way in the industry and make a long-term successful career out of this?
Yeah, look, it's still very much there. I think ensuring you stay up to speed, it's probably a very obvious thing to say, but it moves so quickly now. You need to be a generalist. You need to know a fair bit about sort of everything, from creative to media, to click-through rates, to return of investment, to cost per thousand, cost per acquisitions. There's a million acronyms, CPAs, CPTs, it's a lot to take on. And I think if you're hungry for it and you're determined to do it, then, the world is your oyster. You can still do it. It's a big old world out there with a lot of opportunity. But like, any career, you need to be hungry for it and you need to go for it.
Okay, so especially in your current role now where you're sort of recruiting next creative leaders, do you look for people who are hungry?
Yeah, I mean, it's every step of the process with us. It's our initial engagement, San, when we reach out to a candidate. It's how they respond to us in the first phone call. It's how they come back to us possibly on LinkedIn. It's that first interview. It's, how they present themselves. It's their CV. It's their preparation for the interview with us. Often long before they've even gone in to meet with the client that we're representing. And we work with the top end of town. So, it's critical that we get the best talent. And it is competitive. There's no question about that, And sometimes I do feel for some candidates when you've met somebody and you think to yourself, this person isn't right for whatever the reason might be. But it's the way of the world, we're looking for the best.
Would that be more of a gut feel, or because it feels like recruiting sometimes you can base it quite objectively, but sometimes it's something in your gut tells you that it's not the right candidate. So would that mainly be your gut feel for you, or how would you gauge that?
It's a bit of all of it. It's you know what it's like. You meet somebody, you connect with them, or you're attracted to them. You have a great conversation, and overlaying that with their relevant experience, their ability to articulate their strengths, their weaknesses. Not everybody's perfect, being able to outline what you're great at in regard to a role that we might be talking about, where the opportunity is, how you've prepared for the interview, even with us, coming in with questions. It all plays a part of the overall mix to wind your way through the process and hopefully come out the end of it successful.
Okay. So you touched on some of the qualities that a successful candidate might have, such as preparedness and also how they present themselves throughout. If you're going to summarize it into, I guess, 3 key qualities that you look for in the best candidates, what would they be?
Relevant experience. That's cost of entry, really. We occasionally get people applying for roles where you go, you're lovely, but you're just not right for this role. Relevant experience, personal attributes. Again, we just touched on it. Ability to engage, well presented. Preparation around that job, and I guess hunger. It's probably a bit of a cliche, but often somebody really wanting a job, it counts for a lot for me. You can tell they'll follow up afterwards. Even telling you that they think this role is great for them and they really want to go for it and that they want this role. Now that has to be combined with the other 2 elements, but desire for the role is important.
Okay. Because I think my impression was that also sometimes people might think, I don't want to come across too desperate and too needy and keep emailing you. So I guess there's a certain fine
There's a fine
balance.
line. There's a fine line, no question. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And also going back to, I guess, your experience overseas as well in London with Sachi and Sachi, how would you compare the two cultures across Australia and the UK?
We headhunt globally. The culture that is most aligned with us is the UK. So from that perspective, they're the closest. I think the American culture, while there's great talent there, they don't always fit into the Australian culture as well. I think due to the nature of the UK having a population loosely triple the size of ours and a lot smaller land mass as well, they have bigger budgets, they have a smaller area to cover. Therefore, the level of creativity and work coming out of that country is probably higher and better. It's probably more cutthroat, but you've got bigger budgets and great opportunities to produce incredible work. And don't get me wrong, Australia is a great market. We produce amazing work, but I think the UK is probably, a step above. And I spent 3 years with Saatchi's London, and it was amazing. They're a world-class agency, and I remember in my 20s being, excited to be sort of going to in that time, the mecca of advertising, in my view. So, similar, but probably greater opportunity, I think, there. Okay,
so would you encourage, I guess, young Australians in the marketing industry to one day consider, exploring opportunities?
Yeah, I would. On one hand, I don't want to see our talent, all leaving our shores because we need them here. But as individuals, you need to go and see the world and learn and hopefully come back as a better candidate for us so that we can place you on your return. And you do get learnings from around the world and do things differently. So, yeah, I'd definitely encourage it.
Okay. And why do you think as well that the UK's culture aligns more with Australia compared to, say, the US?
Because all of their convicts are out here, aren't they? I think we have greater similarities in the way we live and humour and music and food and that side of things. I think the Americans are probably a bit more hierarchical. Often when I speak to people, they've got very large titles and often paid a lot of money, but when we work it out, it's not as grandiose as what it sounds. Hopefully that makes sense. And they don't always get our humour and the way that we work. The best candidates for us are often the Australians or the Kiwis who have gone overseas for 5 to 8 years. And we call them Anzacs and we try to keep an eye on them and bringing one home after however long and placing them back in the Australian market is great. They've got global experience and we bring them home and often that works really well. Okay. And in terms of your personal experience as well, I guess you seem to really like that time at Saatchi and Saatchi in London. So in terms of the working culture there for you personally compared to, say, Australia where you worked at like the previous advertising agency for a few years, what would you say are the main differences for you? I guess proximity to Europe. The 3 years that I was at London, I had 2 clients that were overseas, one just outside of Paris and one in Copenhagen. And I was travelling often back and forth to those clients. And again, it was hard work, it always has been, but it was also exciting that, I'd be jumping on a plane and flying an hour to Europe to have meetings or do presentations. Whereas, as wonderful as Australia is, Copenhagen isn't Melbourne, And I guess we're landlocked here, you're not as exposed to the rest of the world. But the British culture, look, I think it's very similar. It's the humour's kind of there, the music's kind of there, the food, it's really similar. What made you come back? I was always going to come back. I loved it. But Australia was always home. You know, it's hard to leave the beaches and the flora and fauna and that side of things. I love London. It's a wonderful city. You know, I could easily live there again, but it was simply time to come home and do a version of settling down.
Okay. And you're based in Sydney here now, right? Yeah. And your parents, are they still based back in Queensland?
No, mum and dad have checked out, but they were in Sydney up until reasonably recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so your family actually moved from Queensland to...
Mum and dad were from Sydney. I was born here. They went for a better life to the Gold Coast, and it was amazing. We had 10 acres and horses and dogs and things.
Right.
And so I grew up just on the outskirts of the Gold Coast, and had quite an idyllic childhood actually. But I think at the end of year 12, mum and dad were both a bit concerned as to what I might do on the Gold Coast. I was, you know, in those days going to be a barman or a bouncer, and I don't think I'm quite big enough for a bouncer.
Okay.
So I think that the big smoke was calling, and we still had relations here, so we ended up back in Sydney.
Okay, right. Did you have any siblings by any chance?
I've got a sister, Alana, who is also luckily down here in Sydney with me.
Okay.
So
is she also in marketing by any chance?
No, she's not. She's not. She works at Macquarie Uni.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Different careers.
Yeah. She's had a great career as well.
Yeah.
She's a research librarian, I believe.
Oh, nice.
She's probably a tiny bit more academic than I am. But yeah, no, she's had a great career.
Yeah, sounds very smart. And also for yourself personally now, I mean, you've moved from that career in marketing and advertising to now mentoring and judging, and also now in the recruitment side of things. What's next for you? What's next for me? It's a good question, San.
Look, there's nothing immediately next. I'm pretty happy with doing what I'm doing. Staying involved in the industry is really important to me. So, you know, doing the judging with our trade, press, etc., I enjoy. I still think I've hopefully got a good opinion and a lot to give back. I'm enjoying some smaller things outside of the industry, just around a bit of cryptocurrency and a little tiny bit of shares, etc. Nothing very big, but trying to look on the periphery of it and work out, you know, what to keep an interest in. But, you know, entrepreneurial things might be further down the track, consulting, yeah, still in this region, I think.
Have your kids expressed any interest in becoming a marketer when they grow up?
No, they haven't. My daughter's mentioned being a pilot, but I think that's because a friend of hers, uncle or somebody, flew the Kardashians, and I think she worked out that she might be able to get close to them somehow. She was a pilot, so she wanted to become a pilot. So no, it's early days, and look, if they wanted to go into it, I think I'd be supportive, but time will tell. Okay, so you're open to whatever career paths they choose? Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, you can't be too pushy, but you've got to try and point them in the right direction. But if they got into marketing and advertising, I think I'd be pretty supportive. That's a tough one. You know, there's a lot of jokes about advertising and morals and maybe lack of them. But in saying that, it's in all seriousness, there's been challenging subjects and topics over the years. I think, you know, there are agencies, less so now, but for many years that worked on cigarettes, and they simply wouldn't promote that they were doing it. They would do it in the background. They wouldn't promote that business in their credentials. So I think some of the harder stuff, you know, clients might be better off taking it in-house and producing all their advertising now within their own walls. And there's a lot more of that happening these days as well. You know, clients will start to try and build their own in-house, not only marketing, but the execution, the creative side of it as well. And again, in a digital age, it's becoming easier for them to do that. Okay. I've got one last question. So, now that you're looking for the next creative leaders, how would you describe your own creative leadership style? My own creative leadership style? That, look, firstly, I think you have to be yourself. I have always enjoyed music, film, fashion, so hopefully that naturally comes through. I think you need to be who you are. You can't fake it, otherwise people see straight through you. I think I've always tried to be loyal to my team over the years and do what's right for them, and I've been very transparent. So, I'd always fight for my team and do the right thing by them, and I'd expect the same for them. I also think that, as you do get older and your team starts to get more senior as well, you need to look after them on the way up, because, in a few years' time, you might need them. So, I think being true to yourself, being good to people, doing what you say you're going to do, and stick to your guns is critical.
Cool. That might almost be a great note to end on. Although I am going to break my promise and ask as well, because you mentioned film and music a couple of times. What's your favourite film?
My favourite film? I'd have to go with Reservoir Dogs.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I think
You're
so.
a fan?
Yeah. I think that first film, when it came out, was groundbreaking. I don't think people remember so much now, but seeing that for the first time, in my view, there'd been nothing like it. It was mind-blowing at the time, and it was combined with an amazing soundtrack, which he's known for, great acting. It was.
Did you see his most recent film?
I haven't yet. I'm
Once
close
Upon a Time in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm due to see it. I haven't quite seen it yet.
Yeah, that should be exciting. It sounds like a good film. Favorite band?
Favorite band? Oh, my friends will laugh about this. The Ramones.
Right.
The early 70s New York punk band.
Okay.
They paved the way for everybody. Look, the margins are so small now for a creative agency. They will, somewhere between 11-12% on the lower side, possibly up to 25%, which is small. If you look at some other big businesses, some manufacturers, if you spoke to them about those margins, they'd laugh at you and going, it would outline they'd go out of business immediately, whereas agencies are tending to work in that window. It is very difficult. Sometimes you do need to drop your trousers a bit to stay in the game, because winning and retaining new business is the lifeblood of both media and creative agencies. It's a shame. It comes down often to clients who believe that negotiating down their partner agencies, creative media agencies, they're doing the right thing, but you can't negotiate down so far that there's no margin there, because you then can't afford to employ the people to work on your business, and the people you do employ are often very junior, because you don't have to pay them as much, and therefore you end up getting an inferior product. It's not their fault, it's just they're inexperienced, and it becomes a vicious circle, and you end up losing the business because you haven't delivered to the level of expectation, because you've been negotiated down so far. It's tough.
Yeah. What you pay for is what you get.
Correct. So how do you rise above in the cutthroat world, maybe as an intern? Look, I get this question quite a lot. I'm a great believer in you've got to stand out from the crowd. Again, it's an obvious answer, but sending an email with your CV isn't the answer. An agency or a company might get 20 emails a week. It'll get dragged and dropped into a folder of possible candidates and forgotten about. I think targeting whoever the person is that is the decision maker to employ you, and building a one-to-one marketing campaign nearly about yourself to them, and that might be dropping a bottle of cold beer to the reception every Friday afternoon with a personalised message to that person, outlining that they've had a hard week and that you could help them make it easier next week. And if you did that every Friday afternoon for a month, I would challenge anybody that didn't pick up the phone and call you and say, come on down. So just stand out, do something different, be memorable.
Have you actually seen that happen before?
No.
Okay.
I've told a few kids over the years to maybe do it, but I'd love to see somebody do it. We can finish quickly on a sort of famous story. It was from Saatchi's London. It was before my time. Excuse me. And there was a copywriter who wanted to work at Saatchi's London, and I think he'd applied, and he hadn't been given a role. So he got a sandwich board. The sandwich boards you wear, big bits of timber on each side.
Right.
and he wrote a message on both sides, addressing the executive creative director at the agency at the time, saying, you know, whatever it was, my name is John and I want to be a writer in your office. And he arrived every morning at 9 a.m. at the front of the building and walked up and down the footpath until 5 p.m, stopped and had his lunch during the day. Then when everybody left and went home, he went home. Then the next day he came and did the same thing. Then he came and did it again. And everyone in the office was talking about it. And eventually the executive creative director kind of went, you know, you've got to hand it to this guy. Called him in, gave him a couple of briefs. I believe he did well, and they offered him a role.
Cool, that actually happened.
Yep.
Wow, that's very impressive.
You don't think laterally, and if you want it, you know, there's ways and means of doing it.
Okay. Yeah. That's probably a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you good?
Oh yeah, thank you very
Cool.
much.
Hey guys, thanks for hanging with us on the Convo Couch, and thank you to Simon for coming on today.
No problem at all, Sam.
Don't forget to check out the links to Simon's profile and subscribe below. See you next time.
Bye-bye.